Hello, this is Lucas Palmeira from Imaginando, and I'm here for another tutorial on DRC. For today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make the sounds for the song Everything Counts by Depeche Mode. These are 10 sounds, so it's going to be quite the tutorial, and I'm going to sing on this one, so let's get right into it. Okay, so the first sound that we're going to make is a bass that sounds something like this. Okay, and as you can see, it's made out of the three different tracks, each one with its own DRC and some processing. And as you can see, one is left, one is right, and one is center. So I'm gonna start just by going through the center one. As you can hear now, turn off this equalizer, this compressor, and this equalizer. Bring back the default patch. Okay, and first thing I'm going to do is drop 1 octave on the first oscillator. Raise the second oscillator, drop 2 octaves, and detune it by 92. Okay, go to the sub-oscillator, raise 1 octave, and raise the sub-oscillator to 500. Okay. Now we go to the performance menu and go to unison. Now let's drop the cutoff frequency to 148. Okay. Now resonance at 436. Okay. And envelope generator to amount modulating the cutoff frequency. This is the amount of this envelope generator modulating the cutoff frequency. We want it at 572. Okay, 73 is okay. Modulation page. This page is it's the modulation page for the cutoff, and wanted the keyboard at 604. This means the higher the note, the higher the cutoff frequency. Okay, now for the first envelope generator that modulates the amplitude of the sound, 41 on the attack can be 43, no problem. 472 on the decay. Sustain 456. 154 on the release. Envelope generator 2, 29 on the attack. A decay of 504. Sustain at 0. 122 on the release. Finally, some chorus with a rate of 134 and a depth of 677. Now we can go to the first equalizer. So we have a high pass at 31 Hertz, a little dip of minus 1.86 dBs at around 104 Hertz, sorry. And minus 9.79 dBs around 454 Hertz. After that, I've got this glue compressor with maximum attack, minimum release, and maximum ratio. Minus 29.5 thresholds and a makeup of 3.17. And this three, the DRC, this equalizer, and this compressor, as you can see, it's basically the same for bass L, bass R, and bass C. The difference is that on the bass C, we have on the end of the chain a low pass filter below 530 Hertz. And on the bass right and bass left, I got a high pass filter at 84.8. And I'm doing this, why? I'm going to show you. So I'm going to put just the bass R and the bass left playing, and as you can see, bass L is 50, it's completely hard pan to the left, and the bass R is completely hard pan to the right. And I've got this delay on the right side that you can turn on or turn off like this. And if I put, as you can see, there are 24 milliseconds delay on the right side. If I put it 0, I got this mono sound. But if I give it 24 milliseconds through Haas effect, we get this really nice stereo widening. Okay? And if I add the C, and as you can see, I have less bass on these ones, since the bass frequencies tend to be more omnidirectional. But I add the bass center, and it gets a lot more beefy. So just the only thing you have to do is do these three sounds, the sound and these two effects, then duplicate it twice, do the hard panning for the first two, keep the third one on the center, and the third one basically low pass at 530, and the other two high pass at 84.8, with one of them delayed by 24 milliseconds. And this is our first sound, the bass. Okay, now we go to the back oboe. Turn off this equalizer. Open up our DRC, bring back the default patch. And let's start with a square. First thing I'm going to do is raise the pulse width to 903. And one good thing to have in mind is that whenever you want to recreate something that it's like a woodwind, the best place to start is always a square wave with adjustments on the pulse width. That will give you the closest frequency harmonic proportions that sound like a woodwind. So pre-gain at 500, square wave on the first oscillator with a pulse width of 903. And now let's raise the noise generator to 262. Drop the cutoff to 694. And now attack at 73. Decay at 500, sustain 800, release 267. Okay, envelope generator 2, the one modulating the cutoff, it's all default. So we just have to go to the reverb, amount at 806. Decay of 544. And a modulation of 206. So now we just have to go here, equalizer on. So on this equalizer we have a high pass at 95.8 Hertz. And then we have a dip of minus 10 dBs around 495 Hertz. Okay, so off to the next one. Okay, so we're now on the third sound, which I decided to call it a Zurna because it sounds like a Zurna, and I think that's what they play, which is an instrument typical from the Central Eurasia, and it's a woodwind and sounds something like this. has this modulation on the pitch to simulate playing two notes really fast. Okay, I'm gonna turn off the effects now and bring back the default patch. Okay, and first thing that we're going to do is drop the pregain to 391. And since we're doing a woodwind, again, square wave with a pulse width modulation, this time of 862. $860 should be fine. Drop the master to 858. And now drop the cutoff to 776. Now for the first envelope generator controlling the amplitude of the sound, 33 on the attack. And now 190 on the release, all the rest are default. Envelope generator 2, everything is default, so we now go to the reverb, give it an amount of 512. A decay of 585. 87 should be fine. 754 damping. And a modulation of 3 to 7. Now for that modulation we go to the LFO2, change the waveform to a square, a rate of 454, 454, and finally we go to the modulation page of the pitch, change the modulation from the envelope generator 2 to the LFO2 and raise it to 450. And last thing that we want to do is go to the LFO2 and change the polarity to positive, so it only modulates from the value sorry, that it has to a higher value, so like this. And now for the effects, I've got here a ballad reverb, a 33 dry wet. First equalizer, we have a dip of -4 dBs at around 454 Hertz. We then have a high pass filter, a high shelf filter at 7.81 dBs above 1.5 kilohertz. Then a bell with 756 dBs around 1 kilohertz, and finally 15 dBs at 12.1 kilohertz. The next equalizer, it has a boost of 2.11 dBs at around 190 hertz, a dip of -6.32 dBs around 587 dBs, a high pass of 4 dBs above 5.5 kilohertz, and finally a boost of 9.3 dBs at 9.79 kilohertz. Finally, the final equalizer, it has a dip of -5.83 dBs at around 791 hertz, and then we have this boost of 2 dBs at around 2.45 kilohertz, a high shelf doing nothing, and a low pass filter below 8.8 kilohertz. Okay? And this is our Zurna. Okay, so now we go to the air synth, which sounds like this. Turning off the effects, bring back the default patch. start by changing the first oscillator to a square and the pulse width modulation to 785. Master at 452 and noise at 806. Drop the cutoff to 630. And now we just go to the envelope generator 1, release 174. And envelope generator 2, nothing to change, so we just have to go to the chorus. A rate of 0.97, should be K99, and a depth of 576. We got our patch. Now we have an auto pan with an amount of 69 and a rate of 1/2 beat and an offset of 240. And then we have an equalizer that has a notch filter of minus 15 dBs at around 261 Hertz. Then a boost of 2.60 dBs around 116 kilohertz, and a high shelf of 5.83 dBs at 1.56 kilohertz. Okay, and we got the air synth ready. Okay, now for the low marimba. This doesn't sound a lot like a marimba on its own, but on the context, it does. So, bring back the default patch and go to the first oscillator, change it to a square and drop 1 octave. Pregain at 746. Drop the cutoff to 266. Change the mode of the filter from a low pass 4-pole to a low pass 2-pole. And now we just have to go to the first envelope generator, release and drop it to 202. And second envelope generator should be all default. We just need some reverb, 367 on the amount. A decay of 440. And a modulation of 100. So we got our low marimba here. And we can go to the next one. Okay, we go now to the back lead, which sounds like this. Bring back the default patch. And the first thing that we're going to do is raise second oscillator to maximum, drop 1 octave and detune it to 72. Drop the pre-gain to 705. 703 should be okay. Cut off to 700. And then raise the attack to 45. 48 should be okay. Let's have the release at 387. And now we go to the reverb and raise the amount to 629. A decay of 375. Modulation of 258. 255 should be okay. And we got our backlick ready. Let's go to the next one. Now for the end saw. Okay. Default. And first thing I'm going to do, raise second oscillator to maximum and drop and change it to 216. and drop an octave. Pregain at 673. Go to the VCA, raise keyboard to maximum. The higher the note, the higher the volume. And now let's go first envelope generators, decay and sustain to maximum. Release at 0. Second envelope generator, just put the release at 0. And we go to the reverb, amount of 391. A decay of 528. Modulation of 258. And we got R and saw. Let's go to the next one. Now for the short ARP. Okay, I'm going to turn off the K7D. Now the auto pan. Okay, and I'll bring back the default patch. I'm going to leave the arpeggiator, which is basically just a 1/16th arpeggiator. Okay, default patch. And first thing I'm going to do is change the resonance of the filter to 840. Now a decay of 130. Sustain of 0. And a release of 122. And 24 should be okay. Second envelope generator, just drop the sustain to 0. And now we can turn the auto pan on, which has a rate of 1/24th beat and amount of 78.6 and an offset of 0. Finally, K7D, maximum wet, a feedback of about 221, a sync of 1/16th, and ping pong on, a flutter of 450, full wow, and a stereo width full. And then I've got some automations here, as you can see, which will bring the cutoff to 750 and the resonance to 630, but that's already automated. So we got this one ready, and let's go now to the next one. Now we got a square flute. Again, woodwind, bringing back the default patch. Woodwind, we're gonna use a square wave. Drop the pregain to 669. And now attack 41 on the first envelope generator. 38 should be okay. No, I'm gonna put it at 43. Release 182, and we go to the next envelope generator, which is all default. So now we just need some reverb, which is 242 on the amount. A decay of 300. And a modulation of 275. And we got our square flute. We can now go to the next one. This is the last sound. It's called pass harp. And it has this automation on the balance here, as you can see, but I'm going to put it on the center for now. Okay. Default patch. First thing I'm going to do is pregain at 7454. Oscillator to maximum. detune it to 128. Change performance mode from poly to unison. And now envelope generator 2 amount to 677. Be okay. Cut off at 804. Resonance of 128. Modulation of the cutoff keyboard to maximum. Now for the first envelope generator, 0355 decay. Six, 3, 3 sustain. 154 release. And for the second one, 0 to 30, which is default, then 0 sustain, and 100 release, which is default. Now let's turn the chorus on with a rate of 154. And a depth of 556. Okay, now some reverb, amount of 492. Decay of 444. A modulation of 504. Finally, we go here to the modulation, and we're going to modulate the oscillators to 266. And we got all sounds ready. So all that is left is listening to the music. So let's do that. Balance automated to 29R. So now let's listen to the music. And there you have it, and I hope my vocals were satisfactory. And this was it, guys. I really hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial. We had kind of an hiatus on this tutorial since we had loads and loads of works because of our BAM release, but we're gonna get on schedule again and be ready to have some really good, nice content that I hope that you will like. So I will say now goodbye and see you on the next video.